Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glenn Sutherland.
Sounds good. Okay.
Welcome to a new episode of Canadian Investing in the U.S. with Glenn Sutherland. This week, my special guest is Jane Mepham. Jane, you want to give everybody like an introduction to yourself, who you are, what your background is? Then we'll get into this.
Absolutely. So, Jane Mepham, I live in Austin, Texas, and I own a firm called Elgon Financial Advisors, which is a registered investment advisor that basically works with foreign-born individuals, families, or people that have a foot in another country. So, think people that came to the U.S. They're probably now green card holders or they're citizens. And a lot of the US finances is still very new to them. And then I also work with people that come in on work visas. So, for example, I work with a lot of Canadians on the TN visa, and then, different countries, and we can talk about all the different visas if you want to go there. But I do work with clients from all over the country, as well as people from outside the US. As long as they have, again, US connections or they're US citizens or green card holders living outside the US. You know how the whole thing goes, right?
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, I totally get it. I even have a visa myself. So, yeah, I'm
Ooh,
very, very familiar.
gotcha.
So the reason I found you, sorry, I'm losing my voice. When I was searching the internet, I was trying to do research on building credit and ITINs, and I saw some content and stuff you had, and I was just like, this is, I'm like, I'm not the kind of guy to just like, hey, let's regurgitate it. I'm like, no, let's get it right from the source,
Yeah, it is.
and go from there, because that's how everybody wins, right? Jane, like. I have like for a lot of us like that listen to this show, they're Canadians investing in the U.S. Some of them have went to the U.S. on the T1 visa, sometimes the E2 visa. That's the most common I hear anyway. And sometimes they're just like still in Canada and they're just using their ITIN score or ITIN to do personal things down there. And one of the big questions I get from them is like, how do I build this credit? Like there's sometimes they're sitting there like, I've had this credit card for years and I still have a zero credit score. And like, how do I
Oh,
build this? How do I do this? And like, it's hurting me on financing whenever I go to do something because the banks don't even see I have a credit score. So, do we have
right.
any tips or like, what should they be doing?
Sure. So this seems to be the number one question I get from, once people come to the US and they realize exactly what US credit scores mean. To me, organizations, and I'm sure it's kind of what we're alluding to, use this to judge you financially, right?
Yeah.
If Glenn can manage 100,000 worth of debt, maybe we can trust him with 200,000, that kind of thing. So it is important that we build this as soon as we get to the US. So one of the first things I actually did when I started my firm was to actually write an ebook, and it's a free ebook. They can get it from my website that talks about how you build your US credit score from zero. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the first thing is to hopefully get a social security number. But the way the IRS or the way US works, social security numbers are only given to you if you're going to be working in the US and you need to file taxes. So those are the two things. So I have students that will come, let's say, on F1 visa, and I talk to them and I say to them, go to your school. If they're willing to give you a little job on campus, make sure you get the social security number. So that's the first thing you do, get that social security number. Now, if you're not able to get the social security, and you can stop me at any point.
Yeah. I'll
If you're
cut you
not
off.
able
Don't
to
worry.
get yeah, sure. If you're not able to get the US Social Security number, the next option is the ITIN that you just talked about. Now, the ITIN is given to people. Here's an interesting thing that cannot get the Social Security number, but do need to file taxes one way or the other. So that was US's or IRS way of saying, yeah, we still want you to pay taxes, but we don't want to give you the Social Security number. So my suggestion is if you can, let's get that social security number any way that you can. So that's the first thing, get that social security number. And then the next thing is to try and get a credit card. And there's different ways that you can get the credit cards. Again, I have a whole bunch of things on my list, and I'll share this document with you of how people can go about getting the credit cards. One, you may have to get what's called a secured credit card where you kind of have to put down a little bit, let's put down 500 with this credit company. And then the credit card company will give you a credit card. The good thing is when they report it, they don't say this is a secured card. So as far as the reporting agencies are concerned, this is somebody that's got a credit card and they've been paying their dues. So that's the first thing.
So what is the different, what kind of card is that? Is that like a prepaid card?
Yes, it's what you'd call a prepaid card. I guess
Yeah,
that's what
okay.
you'd call it. Yeah, because you put down, like I said, so much money, and the credit card company will not let you go beyond that. But again, in terms of reporting, it's still the same. So that's probably the easiest way to get that credit card. That's one.
Yep.
Two, you can have somebody make you a co-signer on their credit card. But of course, with the person that's agreeing to do this, let's make sure I think you understand where I'm going with this. There needs to be some trust, between the two of you, because it can also ruin that person's credit card.
Exactly.
And then let's see, as soon as you get a bank account, that's probably the first place you should have started. Always ask them to give you a credit card. It doesn't matter whether it's $100, $200, $300, ask them to give you a credit card. Most of them will be willing to do that.
Yeah, if they trust you enough to give you a bank account, you've passed most of their screening, so you should be able to get something.
I completely agree with you. And if they do, you absolutely should be able to take it. The other one and I think now Canada is able to do this, there's a company called Nova Credit. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but they will let you use your foreign credit report to get a US credit card. So you'll go to their website, American Express will do some of this, and you say, okay, I'm from Kenya, I'm from Canada, UK, I know it's one on the list. And they'll look at your credit scores, wherever you're coming from, and they can kind of bring that over and be able to give you that credit card. I found that to be really, really helpful, for people who are again starting from scratch. Let's see, we've done that's about what, 4, 5, 6 that we've talked about.
Yeah, no, and I found even like just getting the credit card, whenever I was doing it, I went and applied for a whole pile of them. I did get one from the bank I was banking with.
That's
and
good.
then I applied for like Chase and Bank of America and a whole bunch of big ones, and they all denied me. But I have found that there are ones that are easier to get than others. They have a lower threshold, or they're more comfortable with those over time. Okay, so now let's say here you got you have a credit card. You have one credit card. Is that enough to build credit?
It's good to start with that. So whatever you can get, go for it. I recommend if you can do two, if you're able to get 2 or 3, but again, if you're new to the country, that might be tough. 2 or 3 is probably where I would stop. I don't want to go to 10 unless you're the kind of person that's like chasing points and that kind of thing. And sometimes it's just too hard to manage. So I'll probably 2, 3, I think there should be sufficient.
That's what I always said too. Yeah, 2 or 3, just. And I think you need 2 points of credit even to start building credit, right? So otherwise, with one card, it's kind of I don't know. I think some of my some people I know haven't really built credit with just one.
Yeah. So again, let's say now you get the credit card. That's the easiest way of doing it. There's also other ways of building credit score without it being a credit card. So for example, if you rent an apartment, I've seen places where you pay a little extra, like $10 per month or something like that, and they'll take that and start reporting it back to the credit agency. So it's absolutely worth asking about. Can you guys do this for me? So that could be the second form of credit. And there's a couple other ways that you can do it. And again, I have them all in my ebook if people want to have a look at that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, okay, so you needed some points of credit. And then is there any tips to try to build it faster that you found if you're trying to like, hey, this is if you just like, I know like the main thing is to make your payments, right? Or maybe I'm even
Yes,
wrong
make
there.
your
Like because you hear
payments.
people
No,
say like
you're
don't
right.
pay it off, right? Or should you be paying this off? Like what do you recommend people do with this to try and get it going? I have more free content. So if you're interested, I created a PDF guide and a video to go along with the PDF guide to complement it. And what the guide is all about is the 5 most common mistakes that Canadians make when investing in the United States. So if you're interested in this free guide, go to canadianinvestingintheusa.com/mistakes. And let's go back to the podcast. And it's free.
So the first thing I say is, I hate to say, but you kind of just have to put time into it, right? There's really no way around it. I've seen some companies where they're talking about like putting your rent on your credit card, and I completely disagree with that. I think it's too risky. So it really comes down to pay attention. I like the idea of paying it off every month, even though the credit cards don't like that. But what they tend to do, if they notice you're paying it off every month, most of them will come in and offer to increase your available balance. Which again, if we're trying to build credit, it's absolutely worth doing it. Don't pay for services that offer to try and hasten this. I don't think it's worth it, honestly. So I think it's really just paying it off, keeping an eye on your credit, history and scoring, just to make sure nothing adverse is going into that. So be patient is what I'll say.
Yeah, and like one thing I found myself, which I'm not a pro at this at all, but whenever you're saying paying it off every month, and I would sometimes when I was looking at it, I think this helped. Maybe it didn't, but I had like when I first started in the US, I had a credit card for I think it was $5,000 on it,
Okay.
and I was using it to pay for renovations, and I was putting on like I don't know 30,000 on it every month because I would put it on, pay it off, put it on, pay it off, put it on, pay it off, put it on, pay it off. And so it showed that like I could handle this. And I
Yeah.
think then they raised the limits, but I kept doing it.
Yes.
And I think it showed that I could handle a larger amount, but
Yes.
I wasn't using the large amount. Like I needed it a larger amount if I had a big transaction, but I was still going to
Sure.
pay that
Sure.
transaction off within a week, right? Because I was more using it to, because as a Canadian, sometimes when we're paying contractors, we don't have access to necessarily off the start all of those US ways of paying contractors like Zelle and
Mm,
Cash App and Venmo. Some of them you have to be on like the US App Store or US
yeah,
Google
I see what
Play,
you mean.
and so you
Yeah.
couldn't
Yeah.
get those
Yeah.
apps, and so you couldn't pay them any other way, and so it was debit
Yeah.
credit cards. Um, so I don't know. I think that helped. Do you think that that was?
I think it did, because again, when you think about it from the credit cards point of view. I say to people, they need to make money. And the way they make money is a big interest, right? So they'll give you this credit card and they're hoping to get so much out of you every month. If you're paying it off every month, they're not really making that much of an interest, but you're proving to them that, to your point, you can handle more. So let's give Glenn a little bit more and see if there's any chance he will be able to get a little bit out of him. So yeah, it definitely does help. So good for you for doing that.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I did also learn that I was completely astonished is whenever I went from having I-10 and then I finally got my social security number
Mm-hmm,
after many
mm-hmm,
years,
mm-hmm.
um, the credit score transferred over. It was the same, like it moved over. So I spent all this time with not really knowing what I was doing and slowly building this credit score with the I-10. And in all honesty, I assumed whenever I got the social security number, I was going to just be like, all right, that's gone, and let's start over and start building it. But it actually moved over. And when I thought about it, it does make sense because
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't want you to walk away from, if it was bad, they don't want you to have the ability to walk away from it and start over. Hello, everybody. Thanks for listening to the podcast. I just wanted to let you know that I've created a new coaching program. I believe the new coaching program has way more value than any of the programs that have even existed in the past. What we've done is pre-recorded all the lessons so that you can work through it at your own pace, which is pretty cool. And then we're going to meet up on a regular basis to answer the questions, do deal analysis, and actually spend our time together working on things instead of spending our time learning things. I think this will make a seamless transition to buying in the United States and will help you solve a lot of your problems. If this is of interest to you, go to glensutherland.com/coaching. I hope to help you guys invest in the United States, and I hope we provide as much value as possible. Back to the podcast. Here's a new number.
That's true. Yeah. And the thing I actually say to people is even IRS has some sort of a form that you can actually fill out to say to them, I'm the person who's on this IT and now I have this social security number. So let's combine the two. So it's definitely the same thing that the credit rating agencies did for you, to say, yeah, we think he's able to pay. Let's hang on to him. And hopefully we'll make some money off of him.
Yeah, well, every transaction, I think they have like a fee, right? They charge the vendor, right? So they're making all their money there, right?
Right. And that's the thing I keep saying. Remember, these people are really in the business of making money, and that is exactly what they're doing. So the other thing, though, we want to think about, so we've talked about paying your bills on time, keep an eye on your credit report, and you're allowed to get an annual free report from the three main credit agencies. So I say to people, when you're starting out, you can try and get one every quarter from every one of them. So you actually have three of them. Is to keep your credit utilization low. So they give you this 30K balance. Don't go out and spend all 30K, because then when they look at the ratio, it looks like now you're using way too much of your available balance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does, because if you're going to max it out every month or carry a balance, it's going to like with every bit of lending, it's always risk and reward. And if you're going to increase the risk for them, because there's the risk you're not going to pay if you're not paying it off, or you're carrying a large amount. If you carried a small amount, you'd probably be okay. But if you carried a lot, it would be risky to them. It would be scary.
Yeah.
If someone was going to borrow a lot of money from you, if you think of it personally, that'd be scarier than someone that borrowed a little, paid a lot of the interest, paid all the stuff every month. Much more enticing for you to continue lending them money than someone who carries a large balance and isn't making payments.
No, I totally agree with you. And then the other thing is, as you get, because as time goes by and they think you're a better risk, you're likely to get more credit cards. So I always say, don't close the old ones yet.
Yeah.
Just have a plan, because anytime you close one of them, as you know, your score takes a hit. So just have a plan for when you're gonna close them. Again, we don't want to have 10 credit cards. I think we just want to be a little thoughtful about how often, how we close them and how we utilize them. And then the other thing I'm thinking of is whatever credit cards you have, keep them active, even if it's just spending $2 or whatever it is on the credit card every month. That way it doesn't drop off the credit scoring report, unless that's what you want. So,
yeah. And just saying that, like, for Canadians, you're going to have to get a bank account in the US banking system, because, Amex Canada and Amex US, it doesn't translate. So like if you want to pay from your Canadian bank account to Amex, they have the card numbers start with different numbers. You can't pay that from your Canadian bank account. You need to get a US bank account pay, or you're going to have to mail checks to them, which is painful and stupid, especially if you're trying to build your credit and put a coffee on it every month. You're like, that's nonsense.
Yeah. My hope is the fact that you have a US credit card means that you actually now have, hopefully, a US bank to kind of be able to take care of all these transactions. And again, as things get better for you, you can start getting a little more picky about, the credit cards that you pick. So one thing I say, because I travel a lot internationally, is, you want to have a credit card that doesn't have a yearly fee. One doesn't have foreign few transactions on it, because that can add up pretty quickly. Again, you're getting more and more into the system, and now everybody wants to give you a credit card, hopefully. So hope that's helpful.
Yeah. If people are interested in credit cards, I don't know if your ebook has some credit cards listed in it, but for me, I found certain credit cards work for Canadians. If you want to, you can email me and I will give you the ones that I have found worked out well. Like full disclosure, I think I get $150 and you get $300 when you sign up, something like that. But there might be even in, I don't know what Jane's ebook, if it has credit card referrals or stuff, like she might have some great credit cards to get as well. And you talked about this ebook. Where do they find this ebook? How do they get this ebook?
So the easiest way to find the ebook is go to my website, elgonfa.com, under resources. I actually have a couple, it just says free ebooks. And one of them is how to build credit in the US as a new immigrant. So they can download it, it's free. And if they got any questions, feel free to reach out to me and I'm happy to help.
Awesome. If you could send me that link right after this interview,
Sure, I'll do that.
Into the bottom of the show notes, and then people can, if there's some people are like, oh, it's, I have to type this out and find it. Like something just put the link and I'll just get right there and they can find it easy.
Yeah. I definitely will do that. And the other thing, is it okay to mention this? I have a podcast called the International Money Cafe Podcast, where we actually talk with a cross-border EA a lot about some of the issues that you face when you come to the US and how to deal with them. Because again, I've seen a lot with the Canadians who are coming here on the TN visa and all that stuff. So yeah, I'd love if you could just put a link to that as well. If people have questions, we are always open to, take new topics and address the issues you face when you get to the US, when you're foreign born. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, send me the link. I'll throw it in the podcast, in the bottom of the show notes on this podcast.
Great. Thank you so much, Glenn.
Jane, awesome content. Thank you for coming on the show. I think the viewers are going to love this.
Oh, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on.
That was a nice video. Bye.